this per tweet from Kevin Ioli. Sure, most of you have heard by now that Jean Pascal of Canada is out of his June 6th fight with Badu Jack. Failed test for epitrenbolone, drostanolone, and drostanolone metabolite A, as opposed to B, which does, I don't know fucking what.
Epitrenbolone is an anabolic steroid.
And so is drostanolone. I mean, essentially, Jean Pascal finds himself still lingering on in the sport of boxing today due to what appears to be a competitive edge by way of a small pharmacy he's injected into his body.
Was anybody really surprised?
You know, according to Julian Williams, former unified junior middleweight champion Julian Jackson, he says that 75% of boxers today are on something. They're on something. And I remember when Julian had the belts, how insistent he was that rigorous and stringent VADA testing be a part of any contest he's a part of moving forward. That anyone who sought to beat his opponent,
Pee in that cup.
they're going to need some blood, they're going to need some piss, and they're going to need a lot of it.
And here I thought Jean Pascal found the fountain of youth.
Apparently not. Apparently he just found a small pharmacy he injected into his body. Can't say I'm the least bit surprised. Jean Pascal had a very big 2019. He won a close decision, at least to me. What was, in my opinion, a close decision against Badu Jack. Went in there and trounced the then unbeaten Marcus Brown, former Olympian Marcus Brown. Big year for Jean Pascal right before COVID hit following year in March. He ain't done much since then, and we see how he's been passing the time, preserving himself.
Oh, man's 38 years old.
You get a look at this guy, how he still looks out there when he is performing, and it's not outside the realm of possibility. It doesn't seem far-fetched at all that Jean Pascal, all this time, come to find out, he didn't find the fountain of youth. He just found a local pharmacy that he injected into his body. I mean, this is tell-them age in the sport of boxing these days. As anti-doping tests become more and more of a regularity in this sport, the sport's seamy underbelly, what everybody knows but nobody really likes to talk about, it rears its ugly head yet again. This is one of the worst cases I've heard of since the Jarrell Miller fiasco.
You guys remember that.
I imagine that the WBA title, regular title, not to be confused with the full title that Dmitry Bivol is in possession of, I imagine that Jean Pascal will subsequently be stripped of that WBA baby belt. Germany's own Robin Krasnicki is the current reigning interim champion. I imagine that he may be elevated in the very near future. Not far behind him is Matchroom's own Joshua Buatsi, blue chip prospect, drawing closer and closer to contender status.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if that belt ended up with one of them.
It being that each one of these contenders is a higher ranked contender than Badu Jack by way of the WBA's ranked standings. Badu Jack is all the way down there at number 11.
You think they just give it to him?
You know what? It is the WBA, so nothing would surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if Robin gets elevated to WBA regular champion. It wouldn't surprise me if the WBA just decides to hand Badu Jack the belt. Hand it to him. Because I think he's still supposed to be fighting.
I know, the WBA would still like those sanctioning fees.
So the PBC kids have one less guy to show up for their play dates as they pass around that WBA baby belt, which they might not be in possession of anymore.
Maybe this leads to a Badu Jack Marcus Brown rematch.
Not straight away, but, somewhere down the line.
WBO straight away send the letter in, you're now fighting him. And at some point you want to turn around and go, do you know what? Why can't we just breathe and do our own thing? But of course, he wants to be undisputed. So that's why we are considering our options. I think the most likely scenario is we fight Alexander Usyk. If the deal is right, if everyone's sensible, yes, I think that fight happens. But I'll tell you something now. AJ is not in the mood, and nor am I, to be told what to do by governing bodies right now. Do you know what I mean? And there is no guarantee of an undisputed fight right now. So what are we holding on to a belt for? Promises, dreams, whatever. But he respects his belts. He wants to honour his belts. And he's done that for the last 4 years. So that's the likely scenario. All the other names are in play. And we will do now what's right for AJ and no one else.
At this point, nothing would surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if, out of frustration, Anthony Joshua decided to abandon the campaign to become an undisputed champion. It wouldn't surprise me if he decided to hang on to what titles he already has because, things are looking encouraging with Alexander Usyk and Alexander Krasiuk. The last couple of days, there's been talks of a rift. that the Usyk people, they want a lot of fucking money. Anthony Joshua, he's grown frustrated with the situation. Anthony Joshua's detractors immediately resort to saying that he's about to duck Alexander Usyk.
That's what Usyk's cult of fanboys have been saying.
And as frustrating as this situation has become for Anthony Joshua, I don't actually think he's going to vacate his titles. I think he's going to hold on to what he's got. Moreover, I don't look at Alexander Usyk through rose-tinted lenses the way many of you out there view Alexander through rose-tinted lenses. I think he's had a monumental run as a cruiserweight. He did something that was unprecedented down there, but he ain't down there anymore, and this ain't 2018. This is 2021, and this is the heavyweight division.
You talk to a lot of guys about this fight, they'll start carrying on about Usyk's fancy fucking feet and his angles and his combinations. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, this ain't a fucking cruiserweight with cruiserweight arms he'd be fighting. How many times have you seen Alexander Usyk go in there with a guy that's got height on him and reach on him and is a pretty good boxer himself?
Comes from the same Olympic pedigree that Usyk comes from.
I'll tell you what I think. I think the fight's gonna happen, I do. I also want to add that Anthony Joshua really doesn't get enough credit for the quality of his competition. You do realize this would be the third Olympic gold medalist he would have squared off against. The first was Vladimir Klitschko, the second was Alexander Povetkin, and Alexander Usyk. He would be the third. But Joshua's always fucking ducking somebody, right? That's why he's fought more gold medalists than anybody else in this fucking division. Better still, I think the fight is going to happen because the Usyk people can't afford to be cavalier in this situation. They have to be realistic, and I've said this before. This division is different than any other division that's out there. Alexander Usyk and Alexander Krasiuk, they fucking know that. You want to go running risks with the Philippe Hergovics and Joe Joyces of the world? What, you're going to walk away from a Joshua fight because you can't get the exact number you're looking for? You're willing to do that so that you can fight who and make what?
You better wake up, sweetheart.
If you fuck this AJ fight up, what do you think? You're going to get the same kind of payday fighting Joe Joyce on BT Sport that you get fighting Anthony Joshua on Sky?
You won't.
Well, according to Sam Jones, who handles the career of Joe Joyce, fight news is coming soon. That essentially means is, Joe, he might have already found himself a dance partner. He might not be on the table for Alexander Usyk here and now. So for Usyk, I mean, what's the plan? Fuck up the AJ fight to make less money running risks with someone else? No, I don't think so. I think the fight's going to materialize. I think the fight's going to come off. Because the Usyk people, they ain't fucking stupid. Not that stupid.
What are Usyk's chances in this fight?
I'll say this much. I see a fighter in Usyk that you shouldn't look past. A fighter you shouldn't write off. I'll give him that much respect. I see a fighter in Usyk that brings some things to the table. But what I don't see is a fighter that Anthony Joshua has to duck, has to be afraid of, has to avoid. The one at most risk in that fight is Usyk.
He's got fancy feet.
Decent hand speed, good combinations. He's a southpaw, but you do realize that Anthony Joshua, he's actually pretty good against southpaws.
So far.
Usyk, he does have very fancy feet. Though as fancy as his feet are, with Anthony Joshua, he's in a situation where, you can't afford to box him from the outside.
Nope.
You're in a situation where he don't gotta be right up on you to touch you, but you do have to be right up on him to touch him. You've got to get close to this guy to do anything, land anything. You have to step into the kill box. He can box you comfortably from the outside. Essentially what that means is Alexander Usyk is going to have to run sizable risks in order to land scoring blows. He's going to have to. There's no way to win this fight from the outside. On the outside, Usyk would be a sitting duck.
A sitting duck for Anthony Joshua's straight punches.
At long range, Anthony Joshua can pick him apart behind straight shots. So Alexander Usyk's best bet to get anything done is to try to get under and around those straight shots, get inside on Anthony Joshua, and hope for the best, because Anthony Joshua actually can bang, actually can box on the inside as well as the outside. But that would have to be Alexander Usyk's best bet. Crowd the bigger guy.
Because he can't put as much on his punches mid-range to inside.
Mid-range to inside, Usyk being the smaller man, with shorter arms, not as big a wingspan as Anthony Joshua, he might actually have a slight edge in speed there. Slight edge. But this in and of itself doesn't actually disarm Anthony Joshua. This will allow Usyk to get off a couple of combinations, see about trying to get some work done, but even mid-range to inside, Anthony Joshua can hurt this guy. He can overpower him there. Nail him with one of those uppercuts, which we all know is Anthony Joshua's money punch.
It's a situation where Alexander Usyk's best bet is to get inside on Anthony Joshua, though even if he doesn't guarantee success because Anthony Joshua can still hurt him and overpower him on the inside. Lest we forget, Usyk wasn't that big a puncher at cruiserweight. I mean, he wasn't pillow-fisted, but he wasn't the one-hitter-quitter guy of that division, much less now against heavyweights. Agit Kabayel got more of Derek Chisora's respect than Alexander Usyk did, and Agit Kabayel is not someone I would describe as a heavy-handed puncher.
Had to move around that ring a whole lot against Derek Chisora.
So I'll tell you this much. If the Anthony Joshua fight is next, and I think it's going to be, I don't think that Usyk has fully acclimated to this division, finding that creamy center between packing the pounds and still maintaining that same level of athleticism he had before. I don't buy into the fanboy rhetoric of Alexander Usyk. I just don't. I don't look at him through rose-tinted lenses. I see a guy who, if he's fighting Anthony Joshua next, might get himself knocked the fuck out.
He's not acclimated.
I think that packing on the pounds and attempting to carry that weight has taken something off of his speed, something off of his agility, something off of his athleticism in an effort to try to be sturdier, more durable in the heavyweight division. It's all a trade-off. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything costs. Everything costs something.
I don't think Usyk can afford to pick up the tab this time.
I don't see a guy in Alexander Usyk that Anthony Joshua has to duck, contrary to the fanboy-driven spiel, the fanboy-driven enthusiasm that has been associated with this particular subject as of late. What I see is that Anthony Joshua, the champion, the unified champion, has grown frustrated constantly being under threat of being stripped of the belts he's worked so hard to collect and so hard to keep, as he has satisfied more mandatory challengers for the alphabets than either Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, even though he debuted as a professional after them. No consideration is given to that.
None.
It's much easier to say, oh, he's just so terrified of Alexander Usyk, who's looked less than remarkable the last 2 years.
What, you guys were oohing and eyeing at the Witherspoon performance?
What, you saw that and had to change your pants?
I was going to link up with him, like somehow, some way I was going to link up with him, but he was sick. He was in a hospital overnight, and he had just came back from the Vatican, right? And then 2 weeks later, I interviewed him in his hotel room, and he didn't want to make contact with me. Like, you understand, when I see Deontay Wilder, it's a full embrace. It ain't like he kind of kept his distance from me. He gave me knuckles, and he literally said, "Peace, Fred," gave me knuckles, and went back in his room. Like, usually after the interview, we campaign and champagne, and but so with that being said, I knew he was sick. I never spoke about this. Mm-hmm. I knew he was sick in January, and he spent 24 hours in a hospital on the 26th, and he was at the Vatican a month before. So that's just me using. Yeah. This is me being practical.
There's absolutely nothing practical about Wilder's core supporters till this day.
To this day!
Still apologizing, still trying to find ways to explain away and reconcile what took place in his rematch with Tyson Fury.
It's fake.
If I weren't asked about this subject, I wouldn't be talking about it. But if you want to know my opinion, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, you'll already know that my take on Wilder vs. Fury 1,
It's fake.
Wilder vs. Fury 2, and what is to be Wilder vs. Fury 3.
It's fake.
It has changed dramatically because I'm convinced
It's fake.
that these two guys are in cahoots, and everything you're seeing is something that they wanted you to see. From the draw in the first fight to Tyson Fury's dominant win over Deontay Wilder in the second quote-unquote fight to the Glovegate conspiracy that followed. A conspiracy that was fed to YouTubers by Deontay Wilder and his team. Looking back, I now think that conspiracy was devised as a means to add sizzle to the third fight. Because if you remember, the first fight having been scored a draw made the second fight the tiebreaker. The second fight was supposed to settle it. But if the second fight is supposed to settle it and Tyson Fury beats you in the second fight, how the hell are you supposed to sell the third? I know. You cook up a controversy. Use your heads, you fucking morons. If the first fight was scored a draw, and the second fight was supposed to be the tiebreaker, the second fight was supposed to settle it, why the fuck did Tyson Fury sign a 2-fight deal?
He essentially signed on for a trilogy.
You go into a second fight with Deontay Wilder and agree to a 2-way rematch clause, that's basically saying you're signing on for not just a second fight, but a possible third. Why would you have walked into that? Especially if you think you were robbed in the first fight, and the second fight's supposed to be the tiebreaker. The second fight, that's supposed to be the one that settles it.
All this Glovegate bullshit starts.
And it was all fan-driven jargon until late last year when Deontay Wilder himself, in a creepy video message with ominous music, outright accuses Tyson Fury of cheating. And Tyson Fury does absolutely nothing about it. No defamation of character suit, nothing. Your solution is to willfully enter into arbitration with this fighter when, according to your father, you had the option of doing away with this entire situation. That if you don't believe what Eddie Hearn says, why the hell is Big John Fury saying the same thing? They could have wrapped all this up in December of last year.
So when I hear Fred talking about how Wilder had COVID...
Or he believes that Wilder had COVID, while other guys believe that Tyson Fury had a shoehorn in his glove, Kenny Bayless set him up, as well as Mark Breland.
Remember, he was drugged.
This doesn't seem at all fragmented to you? He was drugged, Kenny set him up, as well as Mark Breland. The costume was too heavy, he had COVID.
Fury loaded his raps.
These guys are trying very hard to sell a controversy where there isn't one, because these two guys and these two teams, I believe, are in cahoots. It was always their intention to stage a third fight, and that's why Tyson Fury walked into a 2-way rematch clause in a face fucking place, because they always planned on getting 3 fights out of this. Moreover, I think to some degree there is compartmentalization within the teams. Not everybody's all the way in on the gag.
Not everybody knows how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I honestly believe that Big John Fury's completely out of the loop. But in a nutshell, this is all manufactured. All of it.
Everything you're looking at.